House 105. I am here today to tell you of a vile and despicable crime committed upon our wonderful land of Westeros. I refer to, of course, the assassination of our beloved, wise and good king, King Joffrey, son of Cersei of House Lannister, and of course the mighty, no, not that guy, Robert of House Baratheon. People have claimed the death of Joffrey was due to this man here, his uncle, the Imp. But I'm here today to tell you that there is a conspiracy to blame this person for a crime he did not commit. I am here to tell you about the conspiracy theory to kill King Joffrey. Now, who would have the rationale to kill Joffrey? Was it House Targaryen? No. Their interests are in freeing slaves over in Essos. Was it the Martells? They do have a vendetta against the Lannisters and the Baratheons for their role in the death of the Mad King and the death of their sister. It could not be House Stark. Those perfidious, traitors are now wiped off our place due to the death of the usurper Robb of the North. No. The people who are most likely to have committed this vile crime against our beloved king are none other than House Tyrell. Why House Tyrell, you might say? Let me tell you about the means, the opportunity, and the motive. Poison is a conspirator's weapon. It is a weapon used to kill people in secret. Noble people work in the open. Conspirators work in the dark shadows. To introduce poison into a king's food requires paying off large numbers of people in the royal court, the retinue, the food tasters, and the guards. The only people who could do this would be people with immense wealth and power within the royal court. So that speaks to the opportunity. What better way than to kill our noble king? Than to strike at his wedding. House Tyrell funded the wedding. House Tyrell organised the entertainment. House Tyrell knew about the food. This gives them the perfect opportunity to introduce poison into our beloved king's food. And as to the motive, why does House Tyrell want to do this? House Tyrell is wealthy, wealthier, it is rumoured, even than House Lannister, whose gold mines have apparently run empty. House Tyrell desires power by marrying into the Baratheon and Lannister lineage. But Joffrey, a wise, beautiful, beloved king with independent character and much intellect, would be too headstrong for Margaery Tyrell to control. So instead they assassinate him and put young Tommen, weak of mind, weak of stature, and easily controlled, upon the throne of Westeros. Call me a conspiracy theorist, but this is the real explanation of what went on. Long live King Joffrey.
Where are my dragons? The thing is, we all hate Power Bottom Joffrey, don't we? I'm quite pleased to introduce to you Matthew Dentith, former student as well as a colleague. He did teach with me 105, what was it, 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah.
We were sharing the teaching load of this class. I'm a good friend as well. Matthew finished his PhD in the philosophy department a year ago on the topic of conspiracy theories, especially the philosophy of conspiracy theories. The book is now all done.
It is, yep, coming out later this year from Palgrave Macmillan.
And this is really good. Matthew is on Thursday mornings on BFM. The Conspiracy Corner regularly talks about the conspiracy of the day or the
week,
even yes. There's a blog here with the address. Again, you can find lots of information as well as nice controversies with other world experts on the subject. So yeah, just join me in welcoming Matthew for this lecture on conspiracy theories. Thank you.
And Pat, I've got to say, nice shoes.
You like my shoes?
I do, I like your shoes. I think they're fantastic.
I gotta go now. What are you doing tonight?
I'll send you a text. Okay, some of you might be wondering why I led a session on conspiracy theories with a rather spoiler-rich discussion of the most recent episodes of Game of Thrones. What I find interesting about discussions about conspiracy theories to a very large extent is that we're willing to entertain them when it comes to fiction. When it comes to fiction, we're quite willing to read our Dan Browns. We're quite willing to read about the espionage in the Elizabethan court and fictionalized romances of that particular time period. But we're rather reluctant to talk about conspiracy theories in the real world here and now. Now, this is actually quite odd, because many people who are historically literate will be able to point to a large number of historical conspiracies operating throughout the world, throughout history. You go back to ancient Rome, and you have conspiracies to kill Julius Caesar, to implicate Caligula in a variety of plots. In the Elizabethan age, you have conspiracies galore by Catholics to usurp the throne from the Protestant monarchy. You have Protestant plots to usurp the throne from the Protestant monarch because she happens to have the wrong particular flavour of faith. Historically, conspiracies have happened throughout history. That sounds actually rather tautological, historically, conspiracies have happened throughout history. Historically, conspiracies have happened. And yet when we talk about conspiracies here and now in our contemporary society, many of us want to push back and go, oh, no. That's a conspiracy theory. And when we say that's a conspiracy theory, we're simply saying that's a mere conspiracy theory, that's just a conspiracy theory, that's the kind of thing we don't talk about in polite conversation. And so my job here today, and now that Patrick is gone, I can do whatever I like, because there's no one to chaperone me, is to talk about conspiracy theories from the angle of PHIL105. How can we be critical thinkers about conspiracy theories? Now, often when we think about conspiracy theories, we think about theories like alien shape-shifting reptiles. This is a thesis that is most widely profilated by this guy called David Icke, former footballer, former sports journalist, now travels the world, telling people about the horrors of what really happened in the halls of power. Because according to David Icke, the halls of power are controlled by alien shape-shifting reptiles from another dimension. And they exist for one particular purpose: the harvesting of human blood and the eating of human children. A notable member of the alien shape-shifting reptilian family was the Queen Mother, who, according to Icke, dined on human children every night. And this thesis explains the dire state of our political world and the reason why we are so oppressed by what goes on in society, because our real masters are not the people in Washington, they're not the people in Westminster, they're not the people in Beijing, they are alien shape-shifting reptiles from another dimension, 17 different species competing for control over this planet. And people go, well, that's a bit of a weird theory, and that's one reason why we're dismissive of conspiracy theories, weird theories like that. Or maybe when you think about conspiracy theories, you think about claims of the Illuminati, an ancient order founded in Bavaria, which infiltrated Freemasonic organizations and now has total control of the New World Order by having infiltrated the secret societies that are behind all of our political establishments. And some of you might go, well, that's kind of weird claim to make, these kind of weird conspiracy theories about ancient secret societies, which are rumored to exist, but no real evidence has ever been put forward. That's a reason to be suspicious of conspiracy theories, claims like that. Maybe you've heard the conspiracy theories that claim that, look, 9/11 was not committed by the organization known as Al-Qaeda, but was in fact committed by the American government itself to perform a terrorist act upon American soil as a false flag operation designed to install an authoritarian state in America and to justify invasions overseas. And you might go, oh, that's a really weird claim to make about the American political establishment. I mean, they might be bad, but they're not that bad. And so that's a conspiracy theory, and we take a dim view of theories of that particular type. Maybe you've heard the conspiracy theories about what's really happening with our environment. Maybe you've heard claims that actually climate change isn't occurring. And it's a large-scale conspiracy by the Green Movement, which is actually the remnants of communist Russia trying to take control of the world through the stealthy movement of environmentalism. This is the adage, green is the new red. Or maybe you think there's a conspiracy by the oil and petroleum concerns, whereby actually climate change is occurring, but the reason why the media does this false balance notion of one climate change denier, one climate scientist, rather than actually giving you a representative grouping of 98% of all climate scientists, the 2% of deniers, is part of a giant conspiracy by the petroleum industry to keep discussion about how bad things are out of the press so that they will be able to die in luxury, even though your children and your grandchildren will live in a world that does not resemble the one we're in now. Maybe that's the conspiracy. Or, if you're old enough to remember these things, maybe you're concerned about who really killed JFK. Was it really just the sole patsy, Lee Harvey Oswald, shooting from a book depository? Or was it members of the American establishment who decided to get rid of JFK to install a new president, like Lyndon Johnson and eventually Richard Nixon? Or maybe it was an outside power, or maybe it was a mob hit. But whatever the case, Lee Harvey Oswald, according to this conspiracy theory, is a patsy. So these are all examples of conspiracy theories. Some of them might be conspiracy theories you believe, although often if you believe a conspiracy theory, you often go, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but... So you'll say, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and then you'll start talking about a conspiracy theory. It's a bit like the same thing with, I'm not a racist, but. When anyone says, I'm not a racist, but, you can guarantee the next thing they're going to say is a racist statement. In the same respect, if anyone says, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but unless they follow up with, I really like cooking macarons, what they're going to say next is definitely going to be a conspiracy theory. This kind of shows us that we don't want to be labelled conspiracy theorists, but often we do actually like to talk about conspiracy theories. Now, let's actually get a few details straight on this. So what is a conspiracy theory? Well, a conspiracy theory is just any explanation which cites a conspiracy as the salient cause of some event. So it's a theory about a conspiracy which is put forward as the best explanation, if you believe the conspiracy theory is good. So what this lecture is doing is taking the work you've already done on inference for the best explanation and applying it to a species of explanation known as the conspiracy theory. So we're now going to look at conspiracy theories through the lens of inference for the best explanation and try to come up with a way of analysing whether these conspiracy theories are the kind of things that we are rightfully dismissive of, or whether there are going to be some situations in which a conspiracy theory turns out to be the best explanation of an event, and it turns out that we are justified in believing it. And to do this, I need to get some housekeeping out of the way. I want to try and get rid of a kind of psychological notion that people often have about talk of conspiracy theories, so we can get down to the nitty-gritty of the analysis of these things called conspiracy theories. So, we need to distinguish between belief in conspiracy theories and who are qualified as conspiracy theorists, and this thesis called conspiracism, and the notion of being a conspiracist. So conspiracism is simply the thesis that there are people out there who believe in conspiracy theories for no adequate reason. So these are people who might be psychologically primed to believe any conspiracy theory they hear. So a conspiracist is simply a conspiracy theorist who has no argument for their particular conspiracy theory. Now, this is a psychological thesis. This is a thesis that says, look, sometimes we can explain away belief in conspiracy theories because people are psychologically primed to believe in conspiracy theories. But this doesn't tell us anything about the individual warrant or justification of particular conspiracy theories. I.e., we should not conflate discussion of conspiracism with discussion of belief in individual conspiracy theories. And here's why. Lots of people believe in things for no good reason. So that you will know someone I'm going to be completely agnostic here. So imagine you're either an atheist or a theist. You are going to know someone who is also an atheist or a theist. But it turns out they don't have any particularly good reason for being an atheist or a theist. Actually, probably a less contentious example, rather than bringing up God, is to think about political affiliation. It's an election year. Most of you should be considering who you're going to vote for at the end of the year. And hopefully, as 105ers, as critical thinkers, you all have good reasons for thinking I'm going to vote for Labour, or I'm going to vote for National, or I'm going to vote for the Conservatives, or I'm going to vote for ACT, or New Zealand First, or Mana, or the Greens. But you might also know someone, say, in your family, who's also going to vote the same way. But when you ask them, so why are you voting Green? And they might go, oh, I'm voting Green because, that's just what I do. I vote Green. And you go, that doesn't seem like a very good reason for voting Green. You haven't actually given me an argument as to why you support their policies, or why you think they've got a superior education policy, or why you think environmental concerns are the major driver for the New Zealand economy. You're simply going, I vote Green because we're, Sky. Not a particularly good rationale. And lots of people have views like this. There are lots of people who have unconsidered opinions on basically everything. But we don't dismiss people like that out of hand and go, well, because of that, we dismiss all belief in political beliefs. In the same respect that if you're a theist, but you know someone who has no particularly good reason for believing in the existence of God, we then don't go, well, theism is obviously a load of crap, because, well, I've got a good reason for believing it. This person over here does not, and that just shows you that actually theists are by and large irrational. You go, no, that's an isolated case. Actually, when it turns out we're talking about belief here, we want to be talking about people who have arguments for their views. Sure, there are people out there who don't have arguments or reasons for believing what they do, but they're not interesting. What's interesting is if someone actually has an argument for a particular case, we should analyze it. As critical thinkers, if someone says, look, this is what I believe, and here are my reasons why, we want to analyze those reasons why, and then work out whether we should believe them too, or whether we can put forward a counter-argument which explains it all away and go, well, actually, no, that's the result of a bad inference. And we should apply the same standard when it comes to cases where people have arguments for or against some claim of conspiracy. Any conspiracy theory is going to rest upon a claim like this. They're going to say, look, there exists a set of agents who intend some end and they act in secret. These are the three conditions which, when satisfied, shows you there exists a conspiracy. And to show that there are a group of people who work together, because people don't conspire alone, people conspire in groups. The very definition of a conspiracy is that it's a group activity. They need to intend some end, so they need to have some notion that they want to do something. We don't actually have to say they actually achieve it. All we need to say is that they intend to achieve some particular end. Lots of criminal conspiracies, which are regularly prosecuted through the court, are examples of conspiracies where the police or the Secret Service find out about the conspiracy before anything is actually achieved, but they're still considered to be in a conspiracy, even though they achieved very little. And we've got to say they act in secret. So the whole point about a conspiracy is it's a secretive group activity. People do it behind closed doors. They don't advertise what they're up to. And of course, the last claim is the one that people get concerned about. Because when we talk about people acting in secret, that means that it might be quite difficult to find evidence of their activities. But just because people act in secret doesn't mean they can't be found out. Lots of people are really, really bad at keeping secrets. They might announce they're organising a friend's surprise party on Facebook or on Twitter, and forget that their friend is also on Facebook or on Twitter, and they're able to quite quickly work out exactly what's going on. So the fact that people attempt to act in secret doesn't mean that secrecy is kept. Once again, we're simply saying they are trying to operate in secret, and that qualifies you as being in a conspiracy. Now, of course, only some conspiracy theories end up being plausible. So only some conspiracy theories are going to end up being good explanations of events. But this isn't surprising. Lots of explanations, of the set of explanations generally, only some are going to end up being plausible. There are lots of putative scientific explanations out there which are not supported by the evidence or supported by any decent argument. There are lots of medical explanations out there which once again are not supported by the evidence and don't have any decent arguments in favour of them. There are lots of historical theories which it turns out were not supported by the evidence or had no decent arguments in support of them. It turns out that when we talk about theories and explanations in general, only some of them actually end up being decent or good explanations. So it's not remarkable that only some conspiracy theories turn out to be decent. Because actually, when it comes to any particular set of theories, only a subset of them are going to actually end up being the best explanation available. However, most of us have a suspicion about conspiracy theories. Most of us do go, yeah, but hold on, conspiracy theories are just generally suspicious claims about the world. They're claims about conspiracies, and conspiracies don't often happen or get realized, and so we've got a justification for our suspicion, because look, they're just the kind of belief that most people take a dim view of, and if most people take a dim view of, surely that's a good reason for me to take a dim view of them as well. This is of course an appeal to popularity, and appeals to popularity are always going to be fallacious. You need to actually have an argument that says, look, our suspicion of conspiracy theories is justified, and here's why. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to look at a variety of different arguments which are meant to support the notion that belief in conspiracy theories is suspicious, and thus that's a justified view, through the lens of the inference to the best explanation. So, one major reason people have for thinking that conspiracy theories are prima facie suspicious is that they are typically examples of what we might call the just so argument, or the just so fallacy. And the just so fallacy is the argument in support of a particular hypothesis where the only evidence being offered for the hypothesis is that it fits the data. It's consistent with the known facts about the phenomenon in question. So the just so fallacy is what we might call the inference to any old explanation, as opposed to the inference to the best explanation. To say something is the best explanation is to say that, look, the evidence fits the hypothesis, and when we consider all the rival hypotheses, this particular hypothesis is the only one that survives scrutiny. The inference to any old explanation, or the just so fallacy, is the claim that the evidence supports the hypothesis, ipso facto it must be the best one. I.e., it doesn't take into account that there are other arguments on offer we could consider as well. So here's a crib on what you did earlier in the week when talking about inference to the best explanation. An inference to the best explanation is only going to be warranted, i.e. justifiable, when you can say, look, a particular type of phenomenon has occurred. There are a variety of different hypotheses which, if they were true, would be satisfactory explanations of the phenomenon, i.e. they have evidence that supports them. And finally, one hypothesis is more likely to be true than the other, and that then tells us that is the best available hypothesis on offer, and ipso facto what you've considered is the best explanation. And inferences go wrong when we either fail to consider other worthwhile contenders amongst the available explanatory hypotheses, or when we make a bad judgment about which is the most probable hypothesis. And so often the problem for the just so argument, or any explanation which fits this particular model, is that alternative satisfactory hypotheses are just not given due consideration. However, not every conspiracy theory rests upon an appeal to the just so fallacy. So, let's talk about 9/11. 9/11 is probably the biggest and most well-known conspiracy theory of recent years. So in September 11th, 2001, two hijacked 747s crashed into the Twin Towers in New York, which eventually led to the collapse of the Twin Towers. There was also a simultaneous attack on the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and the fourth plane went down in a field in Virginia. The attacks are said to have been committed by an organization called Al-Qaeda, and Al-Qaeda is a terrorist organization operating within the Middle East, which has a fairly clearly stated goal. It opposes American imperialism overseas. So Al-Qaeda basically opposes what America does in nations that aren't America. Al-Qaeda also has its fingers a whole lot of other pies. It's also involved in civil unrest in Africa, civil unrest in some parts of Southeast Asia. So it's very much against any kind of non-Al-Qaeda view. But the attacks on America, according to the official theory, are that this was an attack upon America to show America what it's like to be attacked on your home soil, in the same way that American military intervention in the Middle East affects people in the Middle East. This is what's called the official theory. The official theory is a conspiracy theory. I don't mean a conspiracy theory by saying it's a load of hogwash. It's a conspiracy theory because it alleges a conspiracy, the terrorist attack, which was committed by a group of 11 hijackers who had a particular end goal, an attack upon American soil, who operated in secret. There's your definition of a conspiracy, and this conspiracy is then used to explain what happened on that particular day. So the official theory ends up being a conspiracy theory. It just happens to be a conspiracy theory which has been endorsed by a political establishment, actually several political establishments, the American government. It's also been endorsed by the British government. It's also been endorsed by Al-Qaeda, the organization which is said to be behind the attack in the first place, and they're a political organization as well, and various academic organizations. Most academics are of the belief that 9/11 was an outside job committed by Al-Qaeda. Engineers, structural engineers and like are mostly in agreement. The attack looks like it was caused by two Boeing 747s flown by Middle Eastern terrorists into New York. It's a conspiracy theory. It just happens to be the one which is endorsed by the political powers in the Western world. There is, of course, a rival conspiracy theory. The rival conspiracy theory says that the official theory is the result of a conspiracy. The rival conspiracy theory says, look, George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, Condoleezza Rice, Donald Rumsfeld, and any other prominent American you can think of, wanted a rationale to bring in an authoritarian state in America by curbing civil liberties and reversing things back to the pre-1960s legally, and a rationale for getting at oil reserves in the Middle East. Now, because this attack wasn't forthcoming, it had to be engineered. So the American government basically engaged in a false flag operation and made it look as if Al-Qaeda attacked America, but actually it was all part of an inside job designed to make America go to war, curb civil liberties, and get access to oil reserves in foreign nations. This is a conspiracy. It's a claim that there's a small group of people made up of the executive branch of the American government. They have a particular goal to commit a terrorist act on American soil to get particular results. And if the conspiracy is true, they have very successfully operated in secret because most of the Western world does not believe that the conspiracy theory that it was an inside job is in fact true. So what we have here are basically two rival conspiracy theories for the events of 9/11. So you've either got the official theory, which happens to invoke the existence of a conspiracy to explain what happened on September 11th, 2001, or you've got the belief that the official theory is the result of a conspiracy, and actually the conspiracy is very big and involves multiple players in the US hiding what really happened on that particular day. So sometimes when you've got rival explanations, it's not conspiracy theory versus non-conspiracy theory. It can sometimes be conspiracy theory versus another conspiracy theory. Just it turns out sometimes the conspiracy theory ends up being an official theory as well. And we're going to see another example of that in just a minute. And this leads us on to our second argument here. Conspiracy theories often exist in contrast to official theories. And many people think if you have an official theory, the official theory is a good reason to dismiss any rival to that theory. If a theory has been endorsed by some influential institution, then that's a good reason to believe that particular theory. So the argument goes, look, the official theory is an explanation of an event endorsed by an influential institution. People just don't go around endorsing any old explanation. They go around endorsing explanations which are, satisfied by good evidence and by good arguments. So if there's an official theory, which is in conflict with a conspiracy theory, that is prima facie grounds for us to believe that the conspiracy theory is bunk, is hogwash, and is not worth listening to. Now, can anyone see a problem with this particular type of response? Anyone want to volunteer their thoughts? Oh, yes, sorry.
The organisation which first endorsed the official theory could be on which a conspiracy theorist holds to be perpetuating it, yet one of the reason to endorse this theory.
Okay, so what you're saying here is something along the lines of the institution which endorses the official theory, which debunks the conspiracy theory, might be the very institution the conspiracy theory is about. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah. And so this is a worry here. We need to be appealing to relevant institutions. There's all kinds of official institutions out there, institutions which are able to bestow accreditation or endorsement. There are political institutions. Political institutions sometimes endorse hypotheses, not because they are satisfied by good evidence. Sometimes they endorse hypotheses because that's what the public wants them to do. So, arguably, one of the reasons why people get so frustrated with politics in democratic situations is that sometimes governments do things which go against the evidence, but go with what people want them to do. And so, for example, education reforms, educationists like myself will go, why does the national government keep on ignoring what pedagogical specialists say about national standards, which is they just don't work? But National's response is, well, no, but we were elected to bring national standards in because that's what the majority of parents want. And arguably, in the political case, that's a pretty good appeal. Politics is a business about winning hearts and minds. If that's what parents want and parents vote for you, that might be a rationale to enact a policy. But of course, if you then use a political appeal like that to dismiss the academic case for or against national standards, then you've got a problem. Because you might go, well, the reason why we have national standards is because parents want them. And the education says, yes, but that still doesn't solve the problem that they don't work. My argument is they don't work. Can you justify them? Saying parents want them doesn't respond to that argument. It's a completely different thing. So we need to make sure that our appeals are to relevant experts. So to briefly crib on earlier stuff you've done on the appeal to authority, an appeal to authority is only going to be legitimate if the expert is in a field relevant to the truth of the conclusion being argued for, there's substantial agreement amongst experts in that field, the view being endorsed is correct, and the expert is testifying honestly. And of course, that's the other issue we have here. Experts sometimes are insincere. When I was but a young man, and when I was a young man, most of you weren't even vaguely on the horizon for being born, there was an ad playing in New Zealand that went basically along the lines of this. I may not be a doctor, but I play one on TV. And I recommend using aspirin as pain relief. Now, when you think about that, that's a really, really bad argument for using aspirin. The fact that he plays a doctor on TV in no way tells you he has the right kind of qualification to prescribe medical advice. At best, it tells you he has the ability to read a script and say things off a page into a camera and be paid for it. It's a incorrect endorsement because the person is not a relevant expert And also there's a question here about sincerity. If you're being paid to appear in a TV program, in an ad to present pain relief, are you being sincere in your expressed belief that actually aspirin works as a successful pain relief mechanism? Or are you going, oh, you're paying me $50,000 through the spot, I'll say whatever you like. There's a worry about sincerity in a situation like that. So you always need to be aware that sometimes appeals to authority can go awry. And that leads us in quite nicely to your particular point here. Sometimes they go awry because the people we're appealing to are the people who are said to be in on the conspiracy. And if you want a nice political example of something that actually did happen, where bad appeals were made, then the Moscow trials is basically the best one you're going to get. So, in the 1930s in Russia, Joseph Stalin was head of the USSR. His former friend and ally, Leon Trotsky, was now his enemy and living in exile over in Europe. And Stalin was paranoid that Trotsky was trying to conspire to return back to Russia and put Russia under Trotsky's control and would get rid of Stalin and all of Stalin's reforms. So Stalin asked the proto-KGB to go off and investigate the claims that Trotsky was agitating to return to Russia and was using his network of influencers to try and get back and depose Stalin. The proto-KGB engage in a quite rigorous investigation, and they come back to Stalin and go, there's just no evidence that Trotsky wants to return back to Russia at all. Trotsky has given up on the Russian Revolution. He's still an avowed communist. He still wants to ignite the communist revolution worldwide, but he thinks that Russia is a failed experiment. His plan is to get the rest of the world to go through a communist revolution, and that will force Russia to go back to the kind of communism that Marx had in mind in the first place. Stalin wasn't pleased at this answer. He's going, no, look, I told you to go and find evidence that Trotsky is trying to take over Russia. You haven't brought me that evidence, go away and find it. And so the proto-KGB, for 9 months, abducts and psychologically tortures a variety of Trotsky's former friends and gets them to testify in court in Moscow in 1936 that there is an elaborate conspiracy by Trotsky to return back to Russia and take control. These men and women are then summarily executed after the trial, and the assassination warrant for Leon Trotsky is offered, leading to Trotsky's death in Mexico outside Frida Kahlo's house 3 years later. Now, at the time that these trials were going on, a famous American philosopher by the name of John Dewey was worried about the procedures. And so he and a bunch of friends formed what was called the Dewey Commission. Dewey Commission being a pan-US, UK investigative committee to look at the results of the Moscow trials. Dewey admittedly hated Stalin. He thought Stalin was the lowest of the low and basically wanted to find any reason to dish dirt on Stalin wherever possible. Dewey was a Trotskyite. He hated Stalin with a passion. Their investigation uncovers some remarkable inconsistencies. Trotsky's son, who dies in the early 30s, is having meetings with people post-death in Vienna in 1933 and 1934. This seems a bit suspicious. Dead people don't have meetings. Trotsky is having meetings with people in Norway in the morning and then London in the afternoon on the same day, in an era where you can't travel that distance in that amount of time. And the Dewey Commission discovers a lot of evidence which is incoherent and inconsistent, to the point where they go, well, look, this evidence looks fabricated. These appear to be claims about what Trotsky's doing, which are untrue. We think the trials are show trials. They are a package of lies. So, the Dewey Commission reports its findings to the American government and the UK government, and the US and the UK do what any decent democracy does. They go and ask Russia whether they've been engaged in lying about their trials. They go, Russia, hey, so we've got this report here that indicates that you've been lying about what happened in the Moscow trials. Could you confirm or deny that? And Russia goes, that's just mere disinformation. That's the day that term was actually invented. Disinformation was invented to describe the Dewey Commission's findings about the Moscow trials. And then America and the UK go, oh, well, Russia's denied it, so there's no need for us to investigate any further. You're just vapid conspiracy theorists, John Dewey and friends. In 1956, when Stalin dies and Nikita Khrushchev becomes chair of the committee, Khrushchev admits the trials were a sham and the Dewey Commission was largely right in all substantial matter of facts. Khrushchev admits there was a conspiracy by the inner party of the Communist Party of Russia to fabricate the results of the trials to justify the assassination of Leon Trotsky. This is a massive, statewide Russian conspiracy that happened in the living memory of some people still around today. This is a giant conspiracy which actually did occur, involving large numbers of political actors, and it turned out that when this conspiracy was putatively discovered and then exposed, the people who saw the evidence appealed to the Russian state, which turned out to be the wrong authorities to appeal to because they were insincere when it came to dismissing the claim of conspiracy here. So for an appeal to authority to be legitimate, the relevant authority must be testifying sincerely. The Russian state lied here to cover up the very conspiracy they were accused of. So sometimes conspiracies do occur, and sometimes people ask the conspirators whether they're up to something, and the conspirators, by and large, are going to say, no, nothing's happening here. So we need to be aware, if we're going to dismiss conspiracy theories because people deny them, that we're dismissing them on the denial for the right kinds of reasons, i.e., are they the right authority to refer to? Are they in agreement with other authorities? Are they testifying sincerely? Our final argument is that, well, one of the reasons why we're suspicious about conspiracy theories might go something like this. We know conspiracies occur. People organize surprise parties all the time, and they are low-level conspiracies. It's people operating in secret to achieve some end, which is a good time, and they do it as a group. Nota bene, no one's ever organised me a surprise party, and I find this to be very, very annoying, given I talk about them all the time, but that's neither here nor there, and I don't expect any of you to deal a bit with that in the next 5 minutes or so, or in the next day. That would be great. But we might live in a world where there are lots of conspiracies, but we might also live in a world where conspiracies are very seldom successful. People may engage in organising, or at least pretending to organise surprise parties all the time, but they may actually fail to ever bring them about. And so to show that a conspiracy theory is good, you've got to not just show there exists a conspiracy, that there might be rationales for people to do things secretly behind the scenes, you've also got to show there's a tight connection between the existence of some conspiracy and the kind of event you're trying to explain the existence of. Because it's one thing to conspire, but it's another thing to actually achieve some particular end. To be a successful conspirator, you don't just organise in a group and plan to do something. You've actually then got to do something and bring it about. And so our worry about conspiracy theories might be, well, yeah, people conspire, but that doesn't necessarily mean that conspiracies explain the occurrence of events within worlds. And thus, for any claim of conspiracy, we've got to say, do you have an argument for that particular claim, which is, once again, to show the three conditions of conspiratorial activity have been met. And so you can go, well, look, with 9/11, we know there existed a conspiracy. If you're agnostic about 9/11, you might not know who was actually behind it or who was responsible for it, but it has all the hallmarks of being the result of a conspiracy. You then need to show that the particular conspiracy you're thinking of, whether it be Al-Qaeda or the executive branch of the American government, that you can show there is a good argument that connects that particular conspiratorial cabal with the kind of event you're trying to explain. And the further worry here is that sometimes you might be able to show there exists a group of people who are engaging in conspiracy and would do it if they had the chance, but there still ends up being a much more mundane explanation. And to demonstrate that, we're going to now go into what's called quality projection mode, so I can show you a short video.
So, we're all agreed that that's the best way to do it.
Absolutely. It's so simple. No messing around with poison-tipped umbrellas or snipers. We just get a chauffeur drunk.
Slightly drunk.
And assume that he'll crash the car.
As long as we pay for a bunch of motorcycling photographers to harass him, I'm sure that'll happen.
And the good news is that only involves swearing another 15 or so people to perpetual silence.
Yes. Plus, people always die in car crashes, don't they?
Yes, always. And people who drive over the limit always crash. What we're organising here, my friends, is a watertight hit. My only worry is that it'll look so much like a murder that people will suspect.
Well, that is the risk we run by doing it this way. It will be totally obvious that it's an assassination, but remember what the Duke of Edinburgh said when he came in here to MI6 to give us our orders. I don't mind carrying the lifelong suspicion of murder on my shoulders, as long as you kill her in such a way that absolutely nothing can go wrong.
Induced tipsy car crash it'll have to be then. It simply can't fail. Unless she wears a seatbelt.
She won't. She's unprovably pregnant, remember? Women recently impregnated by the only man they've ever loved are notoriously slapdash about their personal safety.
So, Dart, you're our best troubleshooter. Is there anything that we've missed?
I've just got one little niggle. Why are we doing this?
Well, because Prince Philip told us to. It's well known that the nation's security services are still pretty much at the beck and call of the royal family. This is top priority. The IRA can do whatever they like this weekend, let me tell you.
And why is he doing it?
Well, because she's so popular. She's beautiful and everyone loves her. We need to kill her now so that people will go off her.
Of course.
I mean, just think about it. If she's left alive to age as gracefully as one can while bringing up the bastard grandchild of a delusional Egyptian businessman, then the public's just going to love her more and more.
You're quite right. As her appearance wrinkles and sags, and she occasionally makes a vacuous remark about something complicated, people's hatred for the rest of the royal family will only intensify.
Whereas, if she's dead, she'll be forgotten in a week.
Yes, of course. You've made me feel very naive.
Hello? Oh. Life imitating art, I suppose. Right. Well, thank you. Well, you can stand down, everyone. That all just happened by accident.
Well, don't tell Prince Philip, we'll still get our fee.
So, actually, when I was working on these slides this morning, I suddenly realized that some of you may not even know who Princess Diana is, because some of you are probably young enough to not remember this particular traumatic event in British history. So Princess Diana was the former wife of Prince Charles, and she's the mother, he's the father of Prince William, who was wandering around with his baby just a few months ago in the New Zealand countryside. And when she died in a Parisian car crash, a number of conspiracy theories were put forward, all of which made the claim that there definitely was a feeling in the British establishment that Diana was an embarrassment to the monarchy and was going around saying things that were an embarrassment to the British government. And so you can kind of imagine there being people in the British establishment who would want her dead. And thus, when she died in a horrific car crash, people went, oh, maybe that was organised. But when you get down to the nitty-gritty of how she died, it seems like such an implausible assassination attempt. The much more plausible explanation is it was just a horrific accident caused by a drunk driver being chased by paparazzi at high speed through a tunnel. So the argument is you might be able to show that there was a conspiratorial cabal of people in Britain who wanted her dead, but in no way means that because you can show there existed a conspiracy that actually they were responsible for her particular death. So we're going to say a conspiracy theory is good, then we need to make some particular claim that the existence of the conspiracy is connected in just the right way to the thing we're trying to explain the event of. I.e., we have to say the inference of the best explanation is satisfied, and that the conspiracy is satisfied by the evidence. All other rival explanations have been taken into account, and it turns out that when we consider all the rival explanations which fit the available evidence, the most likely of those cases is going to be the conspiracy theory. Then, and only then, are we going to be able to say the conspiracy theory is amongst the best explanation for some event. And to get there, we have to engage in a large amount of critical thinking, which is the kind of thing you're doing in this particular class. Looking at arguments in favor of positions, looking at counter arguments and balancing, well, if they say this and they say that, which argument's going to be the stronger given the available evidence, and understanding how appeals to authorities actually work. So to analyze a conspiracy theory is to simply extend your critical thinking to this particular domain of belief. So hopefully you'll now go away from this particular class and probably enjoy what's left of the sunshine in Auckland's rather crazy weather at the moment, but you'll go away and when you hear a conspiracy theory, your initial thought will not be, well, that just sounds crazy. Your initial thought will be, I wonder how I can analyze that using the tools this particular session of classes have given me. That is all I'm here to say. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the afternoon. Go forward, prosper, multiply, and do whatever it is you do on a Thursday afternoon. Thank you.